I am Mikel Running Water, and I have a very long history with this tribe. And I'm here tonight to share with you the history of this tribe and our sister tribe who came before. It's a piece of history that needs some revision. And I'm also honoring the ancient indigenous peoples' process of oral history so that we can maintain where we came from. So I'm starting in April of 1978. It was the third Southeast Conference of Lesbians and Gay Men. It was hosted in Atlanta at a very tawdry, old, unrenovated Georgia Terrace hotel. The Atlanta Feminist Women's Alliance was instrumental in bringing that conference to Atlanta. And some of our own, Franklin Abbott and Terry Barfield, were also organizers of that conference. There was a bit of a blow-up. The conference included gay and lesbian vendors and business people on the mezzanine where tables were set up. But things didn't go too well. When you think about the founding of the Atlanta Feminist, or the Feminist Women's Organization, which became national, one of the reasons for that organization was that lesbians had been more suppressed than the gay men in our tribe. There was discontent and conflict between some of the gay men and the lesbian business owners. On Sunday morning of that conference, in the general plenary session, the women got up in mass, told us, pointed out at all the men, and said, "We are not working with you again until you get your shit together." And they walked out. Whoa! This was supposed to be a conference about unity of all gay people, right? A small group of men got together in a side room that afternoon and had a long, what I guess I would call a heart circle. It was like a small group session. I'm not sure how many hours we spent there, at least 2, maybe longer. Finally, we were kind of winding down. We had hashed through all the issues. We kind of had thought about things that we could do better to rectify the whole situation. And things kind of came to a standstill because nobody was coming up with, what do we do next? How do we resolve this? I got up and said, I have a birthday party, my birthday party, planned at my farm in North Carolina on summer solstice. I would be happy to invite all of you to come and celebrate summer solstice at my place so that we could continue this dialogue and figure out how to become Radical Faeries. Letters went out. This was before cell phones or the internet, long before. Mailing lists were compiled, RFD mailing list, the mailing list from the conference. There were some other mailing lists floating around. A snail mail invitation went out. On June 20th, on June 20th, 1978, the day before summer solstice, 30 gay men assembled at a place I had named Running Water Farm. Wow. That was in fact the first gathering of Southeast Radical Faeries. I'm going to take an aside here and point out that this was in June of '78, and I know all of you have read about Harry Hayes' fabulous first ever fairy gathering in Arizona. The date of that was April of '79. The Running Water gatherings, the 30 people, there was a gentleman named Gary who brought his kids. Two little boys. The gathering it started happening every year. I hosted it for the first 3 years, and at that point, I became kind of tired of living way that far out in the country. Oh, the other thing that's really interesting to me, we were all 20-somethings. There were no elders. I guess out west they had some elders. Harry was older. But yeah, we were 20-somethings coming together and creating this magic. And it was a whole magic thing. And we developed some of the things that we still use today. Talking sticks. Well, we used a shawl. The group from New Orleans, the Laces, Sisters in Struggle, all came. There's a whole carload of them. And they brought a shawl that Dennis Melbison had knitted, I believe. It might have been crocheted. Anyway, we used that for our talking stick talisman for many years. After 3 years, I put out the word that the Running Water Farm would be for sale, and a collective of gay men who many of you are familiar with, at least part of, Rocco Pratt, Peter Kendrick, John Jones, and Ron Lamb got together, created an organization called Stepping Stone, and Stepping Stone bought Running Water. And they continued to host the gatherings there. A fall gathering was added. The house was improved. It had a 1930s chestnut cabin on it. It was pretty basic property, but had a lot of water. That's why I named it Running Water. They began to host the gatherings, and then after a certain number of years, I'm not sure how many gatherings happened at Running Water, that collective started drifting apart a little. Peter and Rocky stayed at the farm. John Jones moved, and later Ron moved into Asheville, which is where I had moved. And that went on for a while, and then when Stepping Stone began to realize that they also had other paths in life and goals of their own, they decided to discontinue hosting the gatherings there. And of course, all during those 7 to 10 years that was going on, there were people coming from the Short Mountain Collective in Middle Tennessee and participating in those gatherings. At the point that Stepping Stone decided to step down from gathering hosting, Short Mountain picked it up. It was pretty exciting because Short Mountain came to Running Water with trucks and loaded up all kinds of stuff. The library, there was quite a substantial library at that point. Well, I believe the cook stove might have gone to Short Mountain too. But the really important thing that went to Short Mountain, and gives you some clue of what was going on in the wider world at that time, was the memorial stones. We had started taking stones out of the forest and either engraving them or painting on them to memorialize the people who were dying of AIDS. And so one of those trucks had a whole lot of these stones in it, and they were transferred to the Memorial Ridge at Short Mountain. So when you visit, if you ever visit the Memorial Ridge at Short Mountain, you'll see stones from Running Water.